Calla Riggs crouched low, her back pressed against the crumbling stone wall. The air was thick with dust, the smell of decay clinging to her clothes. Her breath came in shallow bursts, each inhale painful, every exhale a whisper too loud for comfort. She wiped her brow, pushing back strands of matted hair. The faint glow of a dying street lamp flickered ahead, casting long shadows that twisted like the fingers of the dead. She listened, straining to hear the faintest sound beyond the silence. The city had been silent for years, but there was always a hum beneath it. The noise of something wrong. Something moving in the dark. A distant shriek shattered the stillness, rising in a crescendo that scraped against the edges of her sanity. She clenched her jaw, forcing her eyes to stay wide open, refusing to let the terror paralyze her. She had been here before, had faced down worse. But tonight felt different. There was an unfamiliar edge to the air, an unease that crept under her skin like an infection. "Stay focused," she muttered under her breath. "Stay alive." Her hands moved instinctively, checking the few weapons she had left, a dull, chipped knife, a makeshift spear she'd carved from a broken piece of metal, and the old handgun tucked into the waistband of her torn, once black jeans. She had no illusions about their effectiveness, but they were better than nothing. The shadows seemed to dance around her as she crept toward the mouth of the alley. Every step was calculated, silent. The city was alive, alive with fear, alive with things that weren't human. The void spawn, they were called. Creatures that shouldn't exist in any universe, born of nightmares, bound to consume. Her eyes darted from side to side. The last time she had been out here, there had been 3 of them. Now, there was only her. Calla had learned long ago that there was no such thing as safety anymore. In this broken world, the best she could do was to keep moving. Keep surviving. She reached the corner, pressing her back to the wall again, waiting for the next sound. A distant crash. Maybe another survivor? Maybe not. She had learned not to trust hope. It was a dangerous thing. Her mind flitted back to the days before, the days of light and life, when her biggest problem had been what to eat for dinner. It felt like a lifetime ago. Before the void had come, before they had destroyed everything. "Where are you?" she muttered, pulling herself out of the dark pit of her memories. Focus. The edge of the street was just ahead, and she could see movement, a blur, then another, followed by an unsettling silence. The hairs on her neck stood up, her instincts screaming. There was something wrong. Something was coming. Before she could react, the figure stepped into the light. It wasn't a human, nothing so ordinary. The void spawn had learned to mimic human shapes, its movements jerky, twitching like a puppet. A tall, thin thing with hollow eyes and skin stretched too tight. Its mouth opened, but no words came, just a low, guttural hum that sent shivers through her spine. It smelled of rot, the air thick with its presence. For a split second, the 2 of them locked eyes. Calla's fingers twitched toward the gun, but she hesitated. There was no time for hesitation. The creature hissed, the noise cutting through the air like a knife. Before it could lunge, Calla fired. The shot was wild, but it hit its mark, the creature stumbling back with a screech. Calla didn't wait for it to recover, she ran. Her feet pounded against the pavement, boots sliding in the dirt, her heart beating faster with every step. She could hear it behind her, its hissing growing louder. The sound was almost unbearable. It was always the sound that drove people mad. The sound that made them stop running. Made them freeze. But not Calla. She had learned to outrun the fear. A burst of static sounded from the small, broken comm device on her wrist. She barely heard it through the pounding of her pulse, but she recognized the voice. "Riggs, do you copy? Damn it, Calla, where are you?" "Rook?" She breathed into the calm. Her voice sounded foreign to her ears, rough with exhaustion and fear. "I'm at the usual spot. We need to move now." "Don't tell me." Rook's voice faltered, his disbelief tangible. "You're still out there? After what happened last time?" Calla swallowed, the taste of bile rising in her throat. She wasn't ready to talk about last time. Not yet. "I'm fine," she said, though she knew the lie didn't hold weight. The last encounter with the void spawn had nearly cost them everything. Fine? You're not fine. You can't keep doing this alone, Calla. We need you back here. The others. I'm coming back. She interrupted, cutting him off before the guilt could overwhelm her. I've found something. Something that might help. I swear to God, Calla, if you're out there risking your life for nothing. I'm not risking it for nothing, she snapped. I've got the coordinates. We're not alone. There's still hope. We can make a stand. We just need to find out what's been causing this. She hung up before he could say anything else, pushing her emotions down into the pit of her stomach. She didn't have time for second-guessing, and neither did anyone else. If she had to be the one to take the first step, she would. The void spawn didn't care if she was ready, or if she was scared, or if she wanted to die. They would take her, if she let them. But she wouldn't let them. Not today. The street ahead of her was silent again, but she could feel the presence of something far worse than just the night. Something was moving, somewhere deep in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the flickering lights. It was watching her. Calla straightened, pushing all fear aside. She had survived this long for a reason. The only question now was how long she could keep going. The world was on fire, but Calla Riggs wasn't going to burn with it. Not yet. Not ever. The city would be her grave, but only if she allowed it. With one last look at the darkened horizon, she took the first step into the night. The fight was just beginning. The silence of the ruined city felt like a living thing, pressing down on Calla's chest as she moved through the streets. The moon, thin and distant, bathed everything in a cold, sickly light. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally, warping and shifting in the corners of her vision. The stillness was unbearable, as though the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something monstrous to happen. But it was already happening. Calla could feel it in the air, the sense that something had changed, something deep and primal, like the heartbeat of the world had faltered. The wind whispered against her face, pulling at her clothing, and she instinctively reached for the handgun at her side, feeling the familiar coldness of the metal under her fingers. She was on her way to meet the others. The small group of survivors that still clung to life in this forsaken place. Rook had insisted they stay put, but she couldn't wait anymore. She couldn't sit around, hiding from the inevitable. They had to act. They had to take the fight to the void spawn. It was the only way. The alleyways seemed narrower than she remembered, twisting in odd, unnatural angles as if the city itself was shifting. The broken windows of old storefronts stared out like empty eyes. Everything felt wrong. The world had become a place where nothing was stable, where nothing could be trusted. She stopped at the entrance to the old subway station, the rusted metal gates half open, as though they had been waiting for her. Her breath quickened, a sense of unease rising in her chest. The gate creaked loudly as she pushed it further open, and she winced at the noise. If there was anything lurking in the dark, it would have hurt her. The underground tunnels were a maze of concrete and iron, filled with the remnants of a civilization that had long since fallen. Graffiti marked the walls, decaying symbols, faded messages from people who once hoped they could survive, their dreams now buried beneath the weight of the void's destruction. She moved deeper into the dark, feeling the tremor of something alive. A low hum reverberated through the walls, just at the edge of hearing. Something was wrong. The air tasted stale and sharp, and it wasn't the smell of decay this time. It was different. Something new. Then she heard it. A sound like 1,000 voices, all whispering at once, filling the space around her. It was coming from the darkness, deeper into the tunnel. Her hand gripped the knife tightly as she took another step, moving closer to the source of the sound. A figure appeared ahead of her, standing in the shadows. At first, it looked like a man, tall, hunched, his silhouette blurred by the darkness. But Calla could tell, she could feel it in her bones, that this wasn't human. No, this wasn't anything human. Not anymore. The creature stepped into the weak light, revealing its twisted form. Its skin was translucent, veins running like dark rivers beneath, and its eyes, if you could call them eyes, were vast and empty, black pools that seemed to suck in all light. It stood still, studying her with a cold, unnatural intelligence. Calla's breath caught in her throat. "Not again," she whispered. "The void spawn. It was one of them. But this one was different." Its mouth opened slowly, revealing rows of jagged teeth, impossibly sharp, like something out of a nightmare. The sound that followed wasn't a roar, but something worse, like 1,000 tortured souls trapped in one body, all screaming at once. It lunged at her with terrifying speed, and in the same breath, Calla was already moving. She had no choice. There was no time to think, no time to hesitate. She slashed with the knife, aiming for its neck, but the creature was too fast. It dodged, and her blade sank into the wall with a sickening thud. She spun to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws as they slashed through the air, sending sparks as they scraped against the concrete. Her pulse raced, and her body moved on instinct. She needed to escape. "Get the hell away from me!" she yelled, firing the handgun in quick bursts, aiming for the thing's head. The shots hit, but it barely flinched. It was as though it was made of something harder than flesh, something unnatural. The creature screeched in pain, but the sound didn't make her feel victorious. It only fueled the growing sense of dread in her gut. "Stay down!" Calla shouted, desperation bleeding into her voice. But the creature didn't listen. It lunged again, knocking her to the ground, the weight of its twisted form crushing her chest. She struggled, gasping for breath as its claws scraped against her skin, tearing through her jacket. Her body screamed in protest, but she fought harder. With a sharp, final twist, she drove the knife into the creature's side, twisting the blade deep. It howled, its shriek reverberating off the walls, shaking the very foundation of the tunnel. The creature's grip loosened, and with a final push, she shoved it off her, crawling backward as the thing thrashed in agony. It gurgled and writhed, its body twisting in ways no living thing should, until it finally went still. She didn't give it a second thought. She couldn't afford to. The creature was dead, but the real danger was just beginning. More would come. She knew that as surely as she knew the sun would rise. Breathing heavily, Calla wiped the blood from her face, her body shaking with the adrenaline that still coursed through her veins. She glanced down at her jacket, torn to shreds, but she was alive. For now. "Rook!" she breathed, pulling out the calm again. "I've found something. You need to see this." Her voice trembled not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that this wasn't just another random encounter. The void spawn were evolving. They were changing. And the worst part? She had no idea why. The world wasn't just ending. It was mutating. And she was stuck in the middle of it. The cold underground tunnels twisted like veins through a dying body, each turn and turn more oppressive than the last. Calla could still feel the blood pumping in her ears, could still hear the echoes of her struggle with the void spawn, the gurgling shrieks, the terrible weight of its form crashing down on her. But now, in the aftermath, there was an eerie silence. She had expected to feel relief, or at least a momentary sense of victory. She had killed the creature. She had survived. But instead, there was only the oppressive weight of something worse. Something much worse than the creature itself. She stepped carefully over the corpse, her shoes crunching on its shattered form. The air felt too still, too thick with the kind of silence that spoke of impending disaster. She should have been heading back to the others, back to Rook and the survivors. They needed to know what she'd found. They needed to prepare for what was coming. But something in the depths of her chest told her she couldn't go back yet. Not until she had answers. Her wrist calmed buzzed to life, jerking her out of her thoughts. "Calla, you there? Where the hell are you?" Rook's voice was tight, urgent. She winced, hearing the concern in his tone, but she couldn't afford to explain everything right now. Not yet. There was too much she didn't understand. "I'm alive, Rook. I'm not good enough." He cut her off. "We've been waiting for you for hours. We're running out of supplies and we need to. Listen to me," she snapped, her voice low and firm. "I've found something. It's worse than I thought." A long pause followed. Then, Rook's voice came through, quieter, more controlled. "What do you mean?" "I'm not sure yet," Calla replied. "But it's not just the void spawn. Something's changed. They're evolving, adapting. Whatever's behind this, it's getting smarter. And we're not ready." Rook's silence told her all she needed to know. He didn't want to hear it. No one wanted to hear that the monsters they'd been running from were only the tip of the iceberg. The real terror was deeper, and it was watching them. "I'll be there soon," Calla added. "Just stay where you are. Don't go anywhere." The comm crackled, a burst of static followed by Rook's reply. "We'll wait for you." Her fingers tightened around the knife at her side, knuckles white. She felt the pull to keep moving, to head back to the others, but her gut told her there was something more. Something beneath the surface. She couldn't walk away just yet. The tunnels seemed endless now. The walls closed in, an unnatural closeness wrapping itself around her like a vice. The deeper she moved, the heavier the air became, as if the very earth was sinking, shifting. The further from the surface she got, the more she realized. The world was changing, and she wasn't sure humanity would be able to keep up. Calla paused as the passage opened into a larger cavern. Her flashlight beam flickered over piles of rubble, broken concrete, shattered glass, scorched remnants of what might have been machines. But there, in the center of it all, stood something she couldn't quite make sense of. It was an object, half buried under debris, shimmering faintly in the dark. A strange artifact. Not a piece of human technology, but something else entirely. Her heart raced, the curiosity mixing with a sense of dread. She stepped forward, her hand brushing over the jagged edges of broken metal and twisted wiring, until her fingers landed on something smooth and cold. The object was almost translucent, pulsating with an eerie light, like it had been pulled from the core of a dying star. It had an otherworldly feel, and yet it was so familiar. Calla leaned down, inspecting it. A symbol, faint but unmistakable, glowed on its surface, a circle, with a line cutting through the center. It was alien, not like any human language or writing she had seen before. A scraping sound made her freeze. Her senses shot to full alert. She hadn't heard anything before, but now now something was definitely approaching. The hum of the void spawn grew louder. In the shadows, something stirred. A shape moved, darting between the wreckage of the cavern. It was more than just one. There were others. They had been drawn to the artifact. Calla's blood ran cold. The figures emerged from the darkness, more void spawn, but not the same as the first one. These were bigger, bulkier. Their forms twisted and expanded, bulging with extra limbs, massive, grotesque eyes staring with hunger. They had adapted, just like the ones she had faced earlier. And they weren't alone. From the far corner of the cavern, a dark shape slithered into view. Something far larger than the void spawn. Its size was so immense that the cavern trembled with each step it took. The creature was no longer just a twisted, distorted figure. It had grown, mutated into something monstrous. Its form was an amalgamation of darkness and light, flickering in and out of existence, as if the very fabric of reality bent to its will. Calla's breath caught in her throat. This was not just an enemy. This was something beyond that. Something that was changing the very laws of nature. The creature spoke, its voice like 1,000 whispers crawling into her mind. Asterisk. You dare challenge us? You who have no place in this world. Asterisk. Her legs were stiff, but she couldn't move. She couldn't even breathe. It was wrong. Everything was wrong. You are the first. The creature continued, its voice like a sickening laugh. The beginning of the end. It stretched out a hand toward her, its fingers rippling like liquid shadows, reaching for her. With a final, desperate surge, Calla bolted. She ran without thinking, heart pounding in her chest. The creatures behind her growled, giving chase. But even as she fled, she could hear the voice echoing in her mind, growing louder. Asterisk. You are the first. But you will not be the last. Asterisk. And she realized, in that moment of pure terror, That humanity's fight for survival wasn't just against the void spawn, it was against something far worse. Something ancient and powerful, hidden beneath the surface. Calla had to make it back. She had to warn the others. But the world had already begun to fall apart. And she was running out of time. The fight was no longer just about survival. It was about resisting the impossible. The air was thick with dread as Calla sprinted through the dark tunnels, the sound of her ragged breaths mixing with the ever-present hum of the void spawn. The cavern had grown silent behind her, but she knew that silence wouldn't last long. The giant creature, the one that had spoken with that bone-chilling voice, was still hunting her. And it wasn't alone. Her boots slapped against the cold, damp concrete as she twisted through the maze of tunnels, the flickering flashlight barely illuminating the path ahead. The others were just a few miles away, Rook and the survivors, but the distance felt endless, the weight of the pursuit pushing down on her like a stone. She had to get back. She had to warn them. But every step felt like a countdown. Every breath, a moment slipping away. The sound of claws scraping against stone echoed behind her, growing closer. She didn't dare look back. The creatures were relentless, and she was slowing down. Her muscles burned, each stride heavy with exhaustion, but the fear kept her feet moving. Fear of what she had uncovered. Fear of the truth she now carried in her gut like a twisted secret. And fear of what would happen if she failed. "Rook!" she gasped, clutching the comm device in her hand. "Do you copy?" Static crackled in response, but then Rook's voice broke through. "Calla? What the hell's going on? Where are you?" "I'm coming back," she said, her voice tight. "You need to prepare. The void spawn, it's not what we thought. It's something worse. They've evolved. I found." The comm cut off abruptly, static filling the line. "Rook!" she shouted into the device. "Rook, damn it!" But the static swallowed her words, and her stomach twisted. She shoved the comm back into her pocket, pushing forward with renewed urgency. Every instinct screamed at her to run faster, but her body was giving in, each breath more ragged than the last. She rounded a corner, her flashlight swinging wildly as she glanced back, just a glimpse, just to see how far behind they were. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, a flicker of movement darting behind her. And then she heard it. The low, eerie growl. They were closer now. Too close. She ran faster. The tunnel ahead opened into a vast chamber, lit dimly by the remnants of broken street lamps scattered across the room. The walls were slick with moisture, the stench of decay heavier here than anywhere else. She could see the exit in the distance, a sliver of light where the underground passage met the outside world. Her pulse quickened. Just a few more steps. But as she neared the exit, a figure appeared in front of her, emerging from the darkness. It was a void spawn. But this one was different. It was bigger, more grotesque than anything she had seen before. Its body writhed with something that resembled tendrils, skin shifting like liquid, as if its form could barely be contained. It had grown, evolved into something unrecognizable. Calla stopped dead in her tracks, her heart pounding in her throat. She drew her knife, the blade now feeling like a child's toy in her hands. "Not again," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, no more." The creature's head tilted unnaturally, its empty eyes locking onto hers. Its mouth opened wide, and the shrill noise that erupted from it nearly dropped her to her knees. The sound scraped at her very soul, a primal howl that rattled her bones. She turned and ran, but the thing was faster now, so much faster than before. It moved like a blur, cutting through the air with terrifying precision. Her mind raced. The tunnels. She needed to get back to the others, but there was nowhere left to run. She heard the scraping of its claws again, closer this time, and then the voice. Asterisk. "You will not escape, little one. You have been chosen. And there is nowhere left for you to hide." Asterisk. The words echoed in her mind, sending shivers through her body. But she wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. With a growl of defiance, she whirled, slamming her knife into the creature's exposed side. It didn't flinch. Instead, it grabbed her wrist, its grip tightening, bones cracking under the pressure. She gasped in pain, but she wasn't done. With her free hand, she drew the gun, aiming it at the creature's face. She fired. The bullet struck its skull, but the creature didn't falter. It snarled and jerked its head back, sending a wave of agony through her arm. She gritted her teeth, refusing to drop her weapon. She pulled the trigger again and again. But this time, she aimed for its heart. The creature screeched, a sound that reverberated through the chamber, and then it collapsed, its massive form crashing to the ground with a sickening thud. Calla staggered backward, panting. The victory felt hollow. The battle wasn't over. She wiped the sweat from her brow, her fingers trembling. She had killed it, but she knew it wouldn't be long before more came. She could feel it, deep inside her, that pull of inevitability. There was no escaping this nightmare. It was only a matter of time before the others found her. She stood for a moment, collecting herself, staring at the lifeless body of the creature. The world around her was heavy, suffocating. The weight of the battle, of everything she had lost, pressed in on her. But there was still one thing left to do. She had to get to the others. With a final, shaky breath, she turned and sprinted toward the exit. The tunnel narrowed again as she pushed through the final stretch of darkness. The light at the end of the passage was getting closer. But as she reached the door, she hesitated. The sound of someone, moving behind her froze her in place. There, standing in the shadows, was Rook. "Calla," he whispered, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. She didn't respond. Her eyes were wide, and her breath hitched as she tried to make sense of the sight in front of her. He was standing there, but there was something wrong. His body was contorted, his skin pale and sickly, his eyes wide and glazed over, as if he wasn't entirely human anymore. Her heart stopped. "Rook?" she asked, taking a cautious step forward. He smiled, a twisted, unsettling smile. "I found you," he said, and Calla knew, in that instant, that it wasn't him. It wasn't Rook. The void had already claimed him. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. And then the world went dark.